Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Moa Swedish Whiskey Girl. We're back with another day of my Support Your Local series here on YouTube. And today we're talking about Clydeside Distillery. I've of course had the pleasure of being at Clydeside twice even and on their tour. So Clydeside is a distillery located in Glasgow. It is a distillery that started in 2017, just like Lindor's Abbey, that I've also been reviewing. So also another distillery that is going to have something they can call whiskey this year. And they have a brilliant location. They are located in an old pump house for the Queen's Dock in Glasgow, which back in its heyday was the dock that kind of imported a lot of goods, exotic goods, of course whiskey for whiskey blending. Glasgow has a rich history of course, whiskey blenders and the whiskey barons. So I really like how they've included that part of history in their tour as well. And they also have a still room which has a really lovely view. It's over the water, and they've been offering this tour that you can sit in a room next to the still room and have the same kind of view and try your whiskey alongside chocolate pralines. And of course I love pairing chocolate pralines and whiskey because you can find so many combinations and different flavorings for the chocolate, and of course different flavors in the whiskey. So that's a tour I really want to go back and do. And hopefully they'll of course open up their tours soon because they have been shut down now for the last few months. And what they've also done at the distillery is that since they don't have any of their own product to sell yet, but they do have the new mixed spirits that we're going to try today, they also have different kind of flavor profiles of different whiskies that they bottled under their own kind of range, and then that's what you get to sample on the tour until they have their own product. But the new make we are going to try, so it's a 63.5% ABV, just like the other new mix I've tried this week, because that's of course a filling strength. So yeah, let's start by having a nose. This immediately feels a bit citrusy, like lime. I mean, it does sit at 63 and it is quite fresh, and there's like this heavy aroma coming out straight away. But yeah, almost a bit lime-like. Feels very fresh. But of course also has that kind of slightly grassy notes of the new make. A lime and grass. There's definitely a sweetness there, but it does feel very, very fresh. And like I said in my other video, I'm going to do a comparison between this new make with the Lindor's and the Kingsbarns new make. That is going to be so interesting just to see how different they all are. But first, let's have a little sip. Slàinte. Quite a thick mouthfeel. You can tell that autumn is coming because I have blisters in my mouth because I've gotten a slight cold, and the alcohol is definitely disinfecting and making it burn a bit, which I think is good. Maybe not too much alcohol, but a little bit does help. Definitely has this kind of grain influence, like it's like dusty grain. So like if you're on a tour and you're next to the mill, sometimes you have this kind of dusty grain flower note in the air. That's kind of what I'm getting on the palate. But it's a very pleasant grain because sometimes in a matured product, so let's say you find it quite a lot in maybe 10 to 12-year-old Highland whiskies, if we're going to generalize it, but they have this kind of dry maltiness that also has the influence of oak, so it makes it feel quite dry and quite kind of malty. But this feels more like that kind of dusty grain mixed with a very fresh and very kind of grassy notes, which makes it feel very, very different. It's not at all that kind of oaky, dry malt. It's more just this kind of freshly milled grain. If that makes sense, is there a difference? Yeah, it's just that kind of the dust. But let's try this with a little bit of water. See what we can get. Now, of course, I'm also a massive fan of new make cocktails. I'm definitely going to experiment a little bit with it, and then we'll see if I can share some recipes here, perhaps. It definitely still has the kind of citrus character. And the grassy new make. This is what I find tricky about new makes. Because new make has such a distinct character, and it's often quite high in ABV, so when you're trying them, because you're not looking for any like oak characters, you just have the kind of clean spirits. It's the same with rum agricoles that are unaged. It's tricky to almost recognize what you're getting because I'm not as used to this. And it's because sometimes having the cask influence gives you almost like a little bit of a help, a push on the way, because you're like, oh, I know this is sherry cask, or you can guess that it's a bourbon cask, or whatever it might be, and then you know what characters that might come from the cask, and it's easier to kind of go through the vocabulary in your head and pick out little things. But with new make, because they all have this distinct new make character, and then other things surrounding it, it would almost be easier to compare two different things, which is why I really like when you can try the new make next to an aged product to see how it kind of changes with that oak influence. But still, new make is something that I definitely could drink neat, and I think it's definitely an up and comer, and more people are kind of learning to appreciate it. It feels quite fresh. Definitely has this kind of citrus peel and grassiness to it. It doesn't feel as murky from memory as the Lindors. And it doesn't feel just as spicy as the Kingsworths, but it is going to be super interesting trying them next to each other to see the differences for real. But I would of course love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been to Glasgow, and have you visited Clydeside Distillery? And are you excited to see what their product is going to be when it comes out in maybe a few years, maybe next year? We don't know. I would of course love to hear your thoughts. And of course, if you like what I'm doing here on YouTube and my other social channels, I would be absolutely over the moon if you consider using my affiliate links the next time you're shopping with either the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, Master Malt, or the Whiskey Exchange. All the information is in the description here below, as well as links to my website, my Teespring shop, my Patreon, and my Instagram if you're curious about that. And as always, a massive thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. I'm so grateful you want to continue to support me on my whiskey journey. But I hope you've all had an absolutely wonderful day. Slán Skål.